Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare.
Well, so good to be with all of you once again. What a gift to be with you on this Wednesday evening. So last week we went through the 12 links of dependent origination up to craving. And then hopefully had a rich discussion afterwards. I wasn't physically available for that. And I did want to just check in, see if anyone had any questions or any things that came up during your discussion that we might pick up on. We will recap a bit. So if nobody's jumping in with a question there, let's just kind of recap the way it all sort of begins. Because it began before it began that time. So it began before that began. But in our beginning, let's just take this lifetime and make it simple. It begins with ignorance, misperception, unknowing, and then the mental formations. That's this storehouse of consciousness, of our karma, and it is present, and here we have consciousness, we have ignorance, mental formations of consciousness, which will all come together, which will have name and form. So that's going to become that which is the consciousness and the karma of the previous life coming in contact with form, right? Seed and egg. And they, at that point, coming in contact as the male and females come to you, sperm and egg. That sperm's the word I was looking for. I couldn't find it. We're here now. Let me go back to biology. Side note, I did pass biology. It took me a while, but I did 10th grade. So at that point, then, actually, some people said they liked the slide. So let me pop those up. I got feedback that people found the slides helpful. Oh yeah, name and form. Ignorance, that is the fundamental unknowing. And this is where we break the link. And mental formations, that's the karmic conditioning, that sort of storehouse consciousness. And there's layers to this, but this is the one that is really going to move us into our new form. Conditioned consciousness. And this is when we think about conditioned consciousness, it has to do with any consciousness that is limited. It's part of samsara. If we were free of samsara, this consciousness wouldn't exist. So it's polluted consciousness in the sense of it's under the control of afflictions, karma and klesha. And then that comes in contact with name and form. And now we've got matter, mind and body all coming together. And this is going to create the conditions now for the six senses, or called here the six sources. And now we've got these sense organs that develop: ears, nose, mouth, the organs that give rise to six senses. So these come into being. So now contact. That's where it all starts getting tricky. Contact. We have contact with sounds or feeling, etc., taste. And now we're going to have 3 types of experiences: pleasant, painful, or neutral. And this is really quite valuable when we think about our problems, our troubles, our grasping, clinging. If we really boil them all down, they're going to boil down to sensations of pleasure or something that's not pleasurable, things that are neutral. We will elaborate on all those because some things are really pleasant and some things really unpleasant. And, some things, a lot of things we experience, we just don't care about. And so we're not motivated in that area. But when we boil them down to whether it's the, beautiful beach or our front porch, we could have that same sensation of pleasure in very different environments. It's really just that same sensation of pleasure. Pain, same thing, can be on a beach in on a beautiful island and be upset, angry. We could be on our front porch, upset, angry. Same sensation. Our minds might be going to different things, but just the same sensation. And there's something incredibly powerful once we get to realize this, because we really elaborate on the sensation, the object, the thing we're focused on, the beach, the whatever that thing is. In my case, it's going to be a banana split later tonight. But so that is this thing, I desire, I want, I crave, right? And then but we had a nice meal earlier today, so that was tasty. It had a sensation. This will be tasty, has a sensation. But if we can just tune into the sensation without all the elaboration, wow, you're going to have a lot more choice in life. And you're going to recognize all the projection I put into what kind of ice cream you get?
Extreme Denali Moose Tracks.
Extreme Denali Moose Tracks ice cream that I'm going to have. I mean, it's already extreme, right? But wow, best ice cream ever, oh, this is going to be the stuff. We can really elaborate. But it's really just going to be the same sensation. Might not be all that dissimilar to my lunch. But we'll spend a lot more money on the side one, maybe, and a lot more energy in getting that as well. So here at this stage, though, we recognize we have contact, we have the organs, these senses available, the contact happens, then the senses kick in, we have, feeling. And, this feeling is just the pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. So it's not the emotions. The emotions are going to be they're going to be related to all this. So here we're talking about the sensation of pleasure or pain, so forth, not emotional attributes. Those again are going to be part of our karma and klesha. So those are going to be very different. They're going to come in unison with sensation. But as we all know, some people would like extreme Denali Moose Tracks ice cream, and some people wouldn't. And it's the same stuff, right? So that's where our karma, our klesha, in contact with this form, these 5 aggregates integrated, has this sensation, and then, wow, this is wonderful, this is not wonderful. And so then we start to understand that the emotional experience coming back is going to be much more directed or related to our karmic klesha. It will have some import. And even the sensation will have a lot to do with that as well. That gives rise to the body and how we have something pleasant, like some people like cold plunges, right? That's a sensation. Some people like that. I don't know why. I have no construct for that. But some people do. It just seems like you get a heart attack or something. I don't know, but they say it's healthy. So some people have that sensation and it's pleasurable, good for them, love it. Some people have that sensation like me, like, ooh, let me get a wetsuit, then I'll do the cold plunge. And you know, we all have a different, even though it's the same type of thing, organs, sensation, and so forth. So very, it's all a related construct of our body and these five aggregates all together. So when we're talking about feeling here, we're really talking about just that base, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, happy, painful, suffering, neutral. And then we get to craving, which is where we left off. And this is where, when we really look at the struggles in our lives, our disappointments, our insecurities and fears, all the things that we have stress over, we're going to have this built around the craving. The craving is going to result from me believing that, that ice cream, I might move on from ice cream. Because otherwise we won't get through the whole talk. But that this is going to be so wonderful, or that this job, or, if I get this house, or if, I get this status, or if I'm acknowledged in this way, or so forth. All that craving is going to be arising now in our lives based on pleasure, pain, and neutral. There's a lot of things we won't do because they seem kind of neutral, not motivated, not interested. We'll miss a lot of opportunities. We'll really project so much onto these activities that we do that we like, the people we like, the things that we do, and we'll also, the other side of craving, which isn't too much elaborated here, is craving to not have something happen. Right? We'll do a lot to not have something happen. And so this is going to be where we really wind up with the majority of our struggles. And that's where, when they talk about the noble truths, the cause of suffering often, will be talked about this attachment, this craving, this grasping, and that sense of desire. And if we really look back at it, down all the way to pleasure, things that are unpleasurable, neutral, and take away all the elaboration, it's amazing how happy and content we can be with a lot of things in our lives that can offer that same sensation. And you don't have to, go all the way to wife. It's right here. And then if I get to the sensation of discomfort, sometimes I'll get to the point it's just this discomfort, and it's not this big drama I put around avoiding it. As a matter of fact, most of the physical pain we have is exacerbated by our resistance to just feeling the sensation. You just meditate on a sensation without fighting against the pain. It actually is much more tolerable. But craving is then going to get us into all of our insecurities, fears, and disappointments, and resentments, and frustrations, and comparisons, with this person, that person, how things ought to be, and so forth. And so this is a big area for us. And if we can really start to work with noticing craving, and then questioning, questioning, is this really, everything I've elaborated to be? And you may actually even notice craving if we're not conscious that our bodies and our sort of mind-body experience, we'll be compelled to do some things that we actually know are not healthy for us, right? Everybody knows that about trying to create a new habit, right? I know, this is not what I want to do. And guess what we're doing tomorrow? Right? And so there's this really fascinating thing that happens as we become more aware. We become aware that our mind and body are doing things that my conscious awareness knows that is not good for me, that I'd rather not do. And we do it anyway. And then it's kind of interesting that how the mind body gets trained by pleasure and pain throughout our whole lives, gets, addicted to this and really seeks to avoid that, and really has, this is what makes my life meaningful, and this isn't. And then our mind body just starts doing these things all the time on autopilot. And at some point we decide, that's not how I want to live anymore. I read this other book. I'm going to do something different. And your mind body says, no, that's not how it's going to work. It just starts doing the other stuff, right? So our brain's gotten rewired into certain patterns, certain reward receptors are available to it. It all starts operating on its own. And that's how we live a lot of our life, right? In unawareness. And you might even notice a tension to do something that you'd rather be doing than the thing you are doing. And then what I'm doing becomes really hard, because this whole mind body thing really wants to do something else, even though mentally I know this is what I think is important. But there's no reward system for that. There's just an awareness of that. There's a reward system for this other thing. I've got, all kinds of little receptors that are kicking off and saying, that's so much fun. And so all this conditioning is going on all the time. It's been going on since we're born, and from a Buddhist perspective, it was going on previously. And that's why it's so challenging to establish a new habit, do some new things, and change this whole structure. The good news is you can do it, and we can literally, start living ourselves in a way that rewires the mind-body experience. And then we get rewards from the things that are valuable and meaningful. And then the things that we were once kind of addicted to become less rewarding. They're not even that interesting. So this whole complex can get rewired. But it takes effort, and that's why you have the analogy of the fish swimming upstream, right? Everybody else is on autopilot. Everybody else is buying and doing those things, and that everybody else does, and that provides these little hits of pleasure, and then our mind thinks that those things are what's providing the pleasure, and then they relate that experience to that thing, and that thing becomes really important, and then we get living in this misperception of how we really exist and what really causes our pleasure and so forth. So really tricky then to think about how we are on this autopilot at all times, and we don't have a lot of control over even what we do often, because it's so much a part of our conditioning. It takes a conscious effort to slowly and methodically be able to do the things consciously that we know that are true and accurate and helpful and beneficial and rewarding on an ultimate level. Because the mind-body thing is just, well, it kind of knows how to feel good right now, pretty much, and it knows what it doesn't want to do. And so those reward systems become really just dominant in our lives. And craving is this piece here where all that's happening. And it's going to lead to the next one, which is clinging. Because then we built it up, then we cling. Now I don't want to lose this, right? I got this stuff. I don't want to lose it. And we even, as ridiculous as it may seem, is we want to cling into the 25-year-old body we once had. That was healthy back. I'm laughing at it because I keep seeing these little commercials about these older guys doing this like chair yoga or chair exercise things that'll get your 25-year-old body back. You know, they're in their 60s. And I don't think that's going to happen. It's a great commercial and the visuals are awesome. 6-pack abs and everything. So, you know, we have this clinging to, you know, our body, our health, you know, our relationships, our homes, our things, and how we want things to be. And it becomes very strong. And then what are all the emotional impacts of that? And when we get right down to it, you know, our insecurities, we might lose that. We might not get this. I might not be good enough. Other people seem like they know how to do this, and so-and-so's like that, and I don't have this. And or I do have this, and I'm so much better than so-and-so. Man, look at those folks. Well, get a job. And, you know, just all the things that can go on in our minds. And all that is this karmic mental afflictions and things that permeate within our mind. And we live in a world where, you know, everything that we're perceiving and attaching the pleasure and the pain to as though they're the cause. And then we're stuck in a loop. And that's all the ignorance, the misunderstanding. And we keep chasing happiness and things that can't give it. And then some of the suffering we're avoiding might actually be beneficial. Yeah. So unraveling that is the path. Unraveling all this. And so getting right up here to, I'll just get to the craving to show you on that side. We're going to get to this point, and this will create the condition for next life. Pretty much, I think we can all relate to the experiences that we've been talking about, whether you believe in the next life or not, right? We have the sensations, and we elaborate on the sensations. This feels good, that doesn't feel good. Then the elaborations and how we get caught up in the clinging and so forth. Nothing, you know, the only part that gets more Buddhist is the mental formations and the consciousness at birth that come. Other than that, yeah, it's human experience. But from this point on, a Buddhist perspective would say this craving is going to come into being the cause for our next life. Because as we're going, you know, we crave a body, and we don't want to die, and this is going to really create the condition for the karma that comes into the next life. So I'm going to pause there just a moment before we go into those next links, which are about becoming again, and just see if anyone has any thoughts, questions, comments. If you do, you have to raise your hand or just directly unmute. Directly unmute is probably better, because I only see 6 of you.
Hey, John, this is Kurt. Back on contact, that it doesn't have to be physical. I mean, it was talking about senses, right? But
Yeah,
it doesn't,
like
it doesn't have to be physical something, right? Because I mean, most of the stuff that I generate comes from things that don't happen, right? Things in my head,
right?
like memories, or maybe I guess they did happen at one point or something, but or imagined stuff that I want or things like that. But it seems to me like it's not, I guess, is it just about physical contact, something I smell or that kind of thing, or is it?
No, we have the mental contact too,
Okay.
the consciousness, yeah. So thoughts, right? We can,
Thoughts are objects just like everything else.
yeah,
Okay, got it.
yeah. And And we can get into some delicious thoughts, can't we? And some scary thoughts. Yeah. The hard part is, yeah, even then with that is to know that they're just thoughts. You know, that's huge if we can know that. They're just thoughts. And I'm not actually thinking them. I think that's one of the big deals. Sorry, my computer's popping up weird stuff at the moment here. Okay. That you know, I'm thinking these thoughts when in fact I wasn't consciously thinking anything. They're just popping up, and they're just popping up out of habit. So, but then you know, contact is made, and then I go along for the ride, or I don't, and or I choose a different thought. But most of us have no, as humans, most of us have no idea that we're not thinking those thoughts. We're just going along for the ride. And the ability to observe a thought and know that it is just a thought, well, we have a choice, and then to engage with it or not, and to understand. I mean, how many times the big aha moment in people's life is, I'm not thinking those thoughts. You know, I'm not such a bad person. Or I'm not just this. You know, because we have some pretty, sometimes, you know, terrible thoughts that'll pop up. I'm such a bad person because that popped up, instead of those are just thoughts popping up. You know, it's like dreams. You know, you didn't choose those dreams; they're just popping up, and they're popping up from deep in the psyche of things through this whole experience. What we do with the thought, well, that matters. But most people don't even know we have a choice to observe, engage or not, and that's huge to learn. Harder to do.
Sorry to keep going, but unless somebody else has something, I'll shut up. But all right. So then I have that thought that I'm not even thinking comes up, right? And I relate to it. I have contact with it. I relate to it either it's pleasure, or negative or neutral,
Right.
and that then drives craving, right?
Yeah.
And none of this is ever even. Most of the time, nothing's ever even happened. Right? It's just happening in my brain.
Right.
Right? And it just over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you just described worry, right? That's nothing but a thought, worry, right?
Yeah, because it hasn't happened yet, right? Nothing's happened.
Right. Maybe nothing ever will. Worry in this definition is having ruminating thoughts about an event that may or may not happen, of which you have no control over.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a great example. Worrying about something that may or may not happen, that you have no control over. And it's ruining how we feel right here, right now.
Well, and driving behavior.
Yeah.
Right. I actually do things in the real world based on that stuff.
Yeah. And even if you can't do things, you know, you can feel the stress of it while you're trying to do other things.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'm born as a dog, right? That's what we're saying. Then the rebirth comes.
Well, hopefully it's with a really good owner, and you get to...
Hopefully I'm one of Connie's dogs, but other than that,
yeah. That's right. Some of those dogs have better lives than a lot of people, right? Yeah. Wesley, that's Connie's dog in another Connie, where we just were in Mexico. Wesley's living a good life, I'm just saying. Yeah, hanging on the beaches in Mexico. He's a little guy. Gets his hair cut just so, gets all the good food, gets carried around everywhere. He's living large. But yeah, also back to sort of rebirth in the sense of, in general, well, the trajectory would be usually, as long as we're doing ethical stuff, high rebirth, human form, so forth. But just being born human is not the same as being born human with a rare and precious human birth. And that's what we can just kind of look around right now with over 8 billion people. How few have even time, energy, access, resources, interest, in teachings that alleviate suffering. And just look at how many people are suffering and have no idea about an actual cause of suffering or any idea of what we're talking about, not even on a Buddhist level, just on a psychological level, about how we elaborate, exaggerate, catastrophize, and place those things in objects instead of understanding the source. Very few humans. So that's the rebirth you're shooting for, not just a human one, going through trapped in that whole experience, and not really being able to find a real happy, lasting happiness. Let's go ahead and take a look at then the process. So now clinging comes. Now death is coming. So clinging is going to be this grasping at the time of death, and not wanting to give up a body. Yeah, craving and clinging. And it becomes, this is in the death process. It's really recognizing that, we're dying. Everything that we have is going to be forfeited. And a strong attachment comes. And the death process, this is, while we're in the process of dying, the mind still has course recognition. And the person can recall things. So we're still lucid in that way, right? Dying, and we're lucid in the way that we can, know what's important to us, and we cling to them in this deep way. And that's going to set the karmic seed for rebirth. And so this is usually just called becoming. In the book we're studying it, they call it renewed existence. And they put it this way: the factor existing in the nature of the ripening aggregates of body and mind of the future life. Bound by afflictions. I always put that, bound by afflictions. That means it's got these kleshas, and we're not free of them, which is the potential of karma made stronger by craving and clinging. So basically our karma and our kleshas, this ripening is coming in. As a cause of birth, it refers not to the state of being that we'll be born into, but to the karmic force that leads to the rebirth in that state. In other words, they're saying this seed of karma has nothing to do with the form you're going to take or what your life's going to be like. This is a very specific seed of karma that says you are going to have a birth. But it's the karma that we talked about in the second link, those mental formations, that will actually determine what the life will be like. This is just basically a technical thing that says the karma has ripened for you to have a rebirth or renewed existence. I think renewed existence is better because it's kind of like we're just always being something. We're just seeing ourselves differently. So renewed existence, it's kind of nice. But becoming is what's usually place there. And then birth. From a Buddhist perspective, birth is the first moment of the new life. Okay, so this is right when the consciousness joins with the fertilized ovum. Right at that moment, birth. From that point on, we're in the second and third link, and into the fourth. So this all comes together. It's name and form, in that sense that you have material with the consciousness, and then from that point, it's our continuum of our consciousness that's going to bring about this new experience that we're having. This consciousness brings with it all the karmic seeds and latencies of afflictions that were present in the previous life. So the second part of link 3. Okay. Second part of link 3. And then 12th link. And this is just basically outlining just the process, aging and death are the result of birth, right? So we have birth, we have aging and death. Aging is the body and mind that decay under the control of afflictions and karma, right? Our bodies are aging, even if you're doing that chair exercises every day. And then death is the cessation of a similar type of mental and physical aggregates. It is the mind's separation from the body under the control of afflictions and karma. So they have a little side note here. This link's called aging or death because some beings die before becoming aged. And so that's where the cycle just continues. And at this point, the best, just kind of description that they just put in there is the body dies, the consciousness doesn't. So that is separated. So they're not together anymore. And with Tibetan lamas, and we've talked about this many times, my own teacher, the body can be dead, but the consciousness is still there for days. And then the consciousness will leave at some point. And at that point is what they're talking about. And then start seeing yourselves differently. And without a body, our Western mind would kind of think about sort of spirity kind of things, but you just conscious things are weird, you don't have a body. And then there's going to be a pole for birth. And there's something I kind of skipped over, is that pull for birth can be so strong that we might be attracted to a birth, is not desirable. Like we might even know, hey, but I want to get born, and you're there anyway, or one that is more desirable. And karma is going to play a huge role in that process, and the strength of that clinging is going to have a big piece of what happens at that point. And then there's a birth process. And hopefully, if you're in the womb of somebody, they're playing some good music in the background, not arguing all the time, have a nice environment, and then come into the world, seeing yourself in this new form. But the idea is that you never really die. The consciousness just continues, just sees itself differently. And so often it's related to dreaming, where when you're in the dream, you forget what you were like in life, and then a lot of times you don't even remember your dream, even though in your dream you did all kinds of stuff. And then you wake up, you don't remember the dream. It's kind of like that, like consciousness goes to sleep, wakes up, and then a lot of people remember stuff, especially early on. A lot of kids remember stuff, and it fades as they age. And other things pop up. My friend David Gonzalez he could describe Ganden Monastery in Tibet. And he'd never been to Tibet, never seen a picture of Ganden Monastery. But he could describe it in detail and pick up a book and know exactly, he made Chief Shamatha and Rigpa, like he just knew, like just picking a book at a coffee shop, like always pops up. And yeah, so these things will ripen in that way. All right, so there you have it. 12 links with dependent regions. So how do you get out? There's one link you break, and that's ignorance. So write it number 1. You break the ignorance, the whole thing falls apart. And so basically, wisdom. If we can know directly our ultimate nature and our experience, we won't be fooled with all the elaborations, and we won't be creating karma, we won't get caught up in all that. And this whole thing falls apart. Underneath the conditioned consciousness, the polluted karma, your Buddha nature is already there. It's unharmed. And so it's really a matter of deconstruction. And part of that deconstruction is just exploring really clearly, in a discerning way, how we are hooked into the craving, how we elaborate, and starting to see where our true source of happiness is coming from, that impact within the reward system, the pleasure system, and how karma gets created by how I live more ethically and what unfolds and so forth. And so working on changing my karma changes my experience, instead of trying to keep banana splits every day. I don't think that's probably, it might get old, right? Possible. Haven't tried it, would have to investigate. And but start exploring, how we elaborate, how we catch on, and understanding that the karma within me is having much more to do whether I have a pleasurable result or an unpleasant result from the content. As I change that, even these things change. One day I might like a cold plunge. I don't know, it could happen. I did get on a horse. I know Alyssa was jumping up over that. So yeah, I haven't ridden a horse my whole life, and I had a little event when I was very, very young. It was a bit traumatic for me, so I've never been comfortable around horses. Don't want to do that. But Mexico, yeah, cowboy it up. That's right. Yeah, we're thinking about going rustle some cattle. We're getting that good. Alyssa's going. So yeah, it's more. Maybe that's the advanced lessons we got there. So yeah, so we have opportunities to change, and that's the big message hopefully here, no matter where we are in the spectrum of our journey. And this is, it's good information. As we engage in Buddhism, it's important to explore information, see what's true to you, what makes sense to you, and how we can engage in that. But as we explore this information, okay, well, here's the Buddhist view that kind of explains everything. It's all mapped out. But where can I work with this in my daily life, and what's helpful? And start exploring where, in my case, really being sensitive to how my mind and body are pulling me to do something other than what I know to be helpful, productive. And noticing that tension. And where I notice that tension, then I notice the habitual patterns. And but if we can start having some awareness, we might be able to start doing those other things. And then maybe even enjoy the things that we do, very simple things. I had a friend of mine who's, just stressed, all the work he has to do and things you want to do around the yard, the chores and things, he wants his wife to be happy and he's got his job and stressed. And, it just reminded him, man, isn't it wonderful you have a yard? Don't you like taking care of the yard? Remember when you first got that lawnmower? And now he's like looking forward to mowing it. He's like enjoys doing it because he's attending to the yard in a very different way. And he's been doing it for quite a while. So he has a reward system now working with it. Laura likes gardening. I don't understand it, but people admire the heck out of her garden. Loves to see life come in, right? And so when we attend to something and see its value, we can start creating a reward system. And but otherwise, we're just dictated by our habits. We're dictated by all that going on. And a real simple way to understand, our body knows what to do all the time. If it gets too hot, it's wanting to take clothes off, and put a hand on a fire, you jerk them. It's doing it without us thinking about those things. It's just doing those things. Unfortunately, most of our life is that. And so can we interrupt the process a bit, be more of an active participant in our becoming? And how can we become in this life in ways that are productive and instead of craving something, appreciating something? And that's kind of the tricky business around craving, right? You can have the house and the yard and the garden, and then you have to do chores. And now it's painful. Instead of, wow, what a joy we have this house and this garden, this thing, right? And so working with that, we have an opportunity to be a conscious participant. But if we can get down and understand that these elaborations that we build up are not true, then maybe we can get down to the sensations and then the knowledge of the opportunity to be in a human form with other humans and cats and dogs and be helpful and kind and do these ethical things and live a meaningful life. You're going to have a lot more joy, a lot more resiliency. And all the Western psychology really talks about that connection and purpose as being keys to living longer and a happier life. But we need to, stay attuned to that. So having said that, we'll pause, see if anyone else has anything. And hopefully I was pretty clear today after my procedure. Uncertain about what might show up tonight. Nobody.
I'll jump in here for a second. Hi,
Okay.
everybody. I don't know. I showed up late. I'm not sure if you mentioned, but I had mentioned last week it would be helpful if there'd be a way to post these 12 links on the Way of Compassion somewhere. It's really a useful synopsis for me, anyway. It'd be nice to have access to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Rachel said that's why I actually popped up it's probably your comment. So I popped them up again today because I heard that
Awesome.
one person in this whole group found them valuable. And then you weren't even in the room. And
I found him valuable.
I don't know that that's true, John.
So, so I will, what I'll probably do is add just one more little, just like all the links in a row, and then these short descriptions.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Make it in a PDF, pop it up.
And this question, I don't know, it might not relate. I think it does, and it might be too big to take on at 10 minutes after the hour here this week, but I'm really focusing on, renunciation and taking refuge in the three jewels. And I wonder what role I have some ideas, but I guess I would wonder what you would have to say about taking refuge in the three jewels and this process of renunciation, what part that plays in breaking these links and freeing from the links.
Yeah, so always the link we want to break is ignorance. So that's where you get out. It all falls apart. So just number one. But the framework that's being shown here, and let's see if I still have this actually. So at the start of this slides, I have the whole wheel of life. So I have to click all the way back here. Yeah, so that's all you need to know. It's right there. It didn't take long at all to answer your question.
Got it. If you leave it up for 10 more seconds, I think I'll have it all the way.
But this literally is everything. And you'll see it outside every Tibetan prayer hall. So in the very center is these three root poisons, right? And they're all, they're all attached to each other. So ignorance, attachment, aversion, and so forth. And then they drive the wheel. And then that little black and white outer wheel thing, which we'll zoom in on. So you got the three poisons. The pig is ignorance. The bird, usually a rooster, is desire, greed, grasping, so attachment. And the snake is anger, aversion, hatred. So those three right in the middle. And then on the dark side, actually, I think it's on the next video. Yeah. Next slide. Is the karma that's created from these three root poisons. And so they go down to the lower realms. You see them kind of going down from animal to these sort of hell realms. And then on the white side, human realm, asuras, gods, going up. So based on these drive the wheel, the three root, and then the good karma or the negative karma, puts us in one of these realms. And then the area outside the black and white wheel, those are the 6 realms of existence, which is how we'll be perceiving ourselves. And then those outer wheel is the 12 links of dependent origination. So those are the 12 links we just talked about. And right at number 1, that's where we need to break it. And so renunciation, we want to renounce the delusion, right, of our misperceptions. We want to renounce that grasping and clinging based on misunderstanding. We want, essentially renounce the confusion that gives rise to attachment or aversion. And in order to renounce delusion, we need to have some faith that there's, this is where our refuge is, right? Some faith that there is something that's dependable, that is beyond the delusion. And that's where that faith, and there's 3 kinds of faith, which maybe we'll say for another talk. Yeah. We have talked about previously. But that faith that's going to arise is in our refuge, is going to provide the foundation to engage in a path, then to cultivate the effort, the joyous effort, to start training the mind, to start cultivating the merit. And in order to do that, it's so effortful. It is so effortful. It's so easy to fall back into habits and conditioning and so forth. That if we don't have that dependability, we're not going to put in the effort to get the result to redo even the reward system in our bodies. It's small steps, but the way and we've talked about this before, is the way I know I'm engaged in that is my motivation as I engage in things. Is it motivated by, grasping, misperception, attachment, aversion, or is it motivated by renunciation, loving kindness, and compassion? And renunciation, we can think about even in a sense of non-attachment, as if we're there. And it doesn't mean that we don't enjoy a comfortable bed or a banana split. It means we can appreciate it if it's available, not cling to it if it's not. And so I think the hardest part is getting into the renunciation piece, is how to renounce delusion and still appreciate the rare and precious life you have and the conditions available to you. Tricky business right there. And in order to even parse that out, the refuge is going to be the ultimate, because we need to have a safe ground, a dependable place, a path that is reliable, teachers that are reliable. Because, with that, even when we get way off track, we know where to come back to. And we'll get way off track. I get way off track. I always know where to come back to. And so it's really important, I think, for refuge to have tested these things, to not take them on blind faith, and to find examples of people that we can really rely upon. And then we're engaging in undoing that whole wheel and breaking that link of ignorance. The good karma is going to be the fertilizer that clears the view, and the wisdom, the understanding of true cause of happiness, suffering, interdependence, is going to alleviate the continuous process of creating more negative karma. That's what I got in a few minutes. But the wheel is like the whole deal. The wheel explains everything. The wheel does not explain how to get out. So the path then is, how to undo that wheel. All right, let's go ahead and dedicate the merit and wisdom that we have cultivated from our time here together. Quite a bit of merit has been collected. Many things we could do on a Wednesday evening. And here we are, cultivating our hearts and minds to be helpful and kind, to live our lives fully and be of benefit to others. So let us collectively dedicate all this merit, along with the collective merit of others, for the benefit of all sentient beings. May they be free of suffering, and for our own continued spiritual growth, that we may be able to apply these teachings to establish a deep refuge in the path that leads to liberation, and understanding the true causes of happiness and suffering. Those in care to join me in our dedication. By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha. May I be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare